What's up guys, I'm Metasly and welcome back to the channel. So if you watched my recent game room tour, you know that I had a project mentioned that was coming up and I'm going to be working on that today. We're going to be building some floating shelves for the game room. So let's hop right on into it. I'll give a little intro of what the project's going to be and then we'll start working on it. So if you watched the game room tour, you already kind of know what this project entails, but for anyone who missed it, I'll go over real quick what the plan is. So I've got this area right here, which is going to be where the project ends up going, but I've got these shelves full of games and consoles and collectibles, all that kind of thing. But I want to move all of this over to the other wall, put some floating shelves over here, move that arcade machine over with the other arcade machines, take the poster down, move this arcade machine that's in the middle of the room over. So it's going to be a lot of reorganizing, but first and foremost, we have to get this area able to be worked on. I've got so much stuff piled up here. I've got to move the arcade machine, take down the poster, move the couch, move the coffee table, all kinds of stuff. So I'll go ahead and get started on that, and then I will kind of show you guys the plan for the shelves and we'll see how it goes. All right, so here's what we've got planned. I've got things laid out a little bit just so you could see a little easier. I know I'm a visual learner, so I'm sure other people are too. So what I've got marked here on the walls, as you can see, these sets of sticky notes here are marking the studs. So that's where each of the studs are on the wall. And then the full notes are where the shelves themselves are going to be. So I'm going to have one shorter shelf up at the top, up along these two notes. And then I will have three longer shelves that go all the way to where this board ends, all the way over into the wall. So that's what the shelves are going to look like. Obviously, I'm going to, sand them, paint them, all that good stuff. But the way that I'm going to mount them is I'm going to use some of these threaded rods and then thread them into each of the studs. So I will have the rod into the stud about 3 inches or so. So it'll end up being about like this into the stud in the wall. And then I will drill a hole through the board in the center. And then I'll have those rods periodically throughout and then use some of this epoxy and epoxy the rods into place. So we will see how that goes. That's the plan. Should be pretty strong if everything goes smoothly. I've actually got one hole drilled already so you can see the rod in the board here. That's about how much is going to be sticking out into the studs in the wall. So first things first, got to get the boards cut to length. I'm going to have them all stop at the same point, obviously along this wall. And then I've got to get the rods drilled into the wall, and then a whole lot of sanding and painting. And then also, as you can see, these are 2x12s is what I'm using for the shelves. And there's a lot of knots and stuff. Obviously, I got the smoothest and straightest ones that I could from Lowe's when I went to pick them up, but they're never going to be perfect, and they've got all of these knots. So to solve that problem, I've got some Bondo here. Hopefully it's still good. It's left over from one of my arcade repair projects. But I'll Bondo the holes, sand everything down, prime, paint, drill the holes, and so we'll see how that goes. So let's go ahead and get the camera set up to get these rods put into the wall. Okay, I thought I was going to grab a tripod, but I decided to do things just a little bit differently. So I went ahead and marked out where all of these rods are going to go. You can see my marks along each shelf where they're going to go. I have all leveled and plumbed, all the marks right where they need to be in the studs. The reason there's 2 marks is because I wasn't paying attention and marked the top of the shelf. So that's the upper mark, and then the lower mark is where the rod needs to be in the center of the board. So I went ahead and marked out all of them on this entire wall, and then I went ahead and mounted one so I could show you guys how it worked out. And so far so good. So these are 1/2 inch threaded rod, 12 inches long. I cut them to 12 inches, and then I've got about 4 inches of it in the wall. So that leaves me with 8 inches to go into the board itself. And they are pretty much straight coming out of the wall, as you can see here. I've got the speed square, and it's looking pretty good. They're not going to be perfect by any means, but as you can see, they're coming out pretty straight. So that is what I'm going to have to do on all of these, get them drilled out. Oh, by the way, I've been doing This is 1/2-inch rod, so I've been doing 3/8 holes. And to get the rod to be able to start threading, I have to kind of wallow out the beginning part of the hole. So I will set up a tripod now to be able to show you guys, and I'll do one of these for you to watch and see how I'm doing it. And then I have got a whole bunch of them to do off camera. So I'll get the tripod and we'll get started on this next hole. Okay, so as you can see, we are at the next hole here. So to be able to drill the hole straight, I've been using one of these jigs. It's not going to get it perfect by any means, but as you can see, the drill bit just goes through and theoretically holds you square to the wall. So I've been doing that to make it as square as possible, although it will not be perfect. So I get lined up on the hole, set my jig into place, and then just drill as deep as I can. All right, so there's one. I will have to bury it a little bit deeper because this bit is 4 inches deep, and this jig will hold me back that amount, and I want to be 4 inches total. So I'll get it in straight with that and then finish off the hole. And now we're ready to thread the rod in. Oh, well, almost ready. So as I said, the rod itself is a 1/2 inch in diameter. So it's a little bit big to just shove in and get to started threading. So I tried on a scrap piece of wood using a 1/2 inch bit, just drilling a little bit to get it started, and that ended up not working as well as just doing this. I just take it and just kind of wallow out the opening just a little bit, and that usually is enough that I can get it seated at least somewhat and then start threading. So as you can see, there's nothing to hold on to or to attach a wrench to thread this into the wall. So I have to solve that, which is very easy because all you need to do is take 2 nuts, thread them onto the rod very slowly. See if I can get you guys a better angle there to see. I know it's just threading on nuts, but okay, so then we'll stop this nut at the very end, back this one up to it, and now we tighten the 2 nuts against each other, and then that will give us something to put our socket onto and wrench it into the wall. So since I don't have a 3/4 bit, or a 3/4 socket, I have to use this pair of channel locks to hold on to it, and doing this all on camera is even more difficult. But even with all of that, it's not too bad. Just have to get the socket going the right way, and then just tighten the 2 against each other. Should be good enough, and now we're good to go. Now we have something to hold on to while we get this threaded in. Oh, well, it did not do it very well. Okay, so I'm going to do this off of camera so I can actually get a grip on it, and once I get these 2 tightened against each other, I'll thread this into the wall.
A few moments later.
Okay, easy enough. And now we just shove this as much as we can in by hand. And then we'll take our socket wrench and just start wrenching it in. Oh, one thing I did forget. I do kind of want to mark where the 4 inches is on the rod itself. That way I know when I'm as deep as the hole is. So that's very simple, obviously. Just take tape measure, Sharpie, mark 4 inches, and now we can see when we are 4 inches deep. Okay, so now we thread it in. We'll have to put a decent amount of pressure on it to get it seated in before the threads will take, but it should be just as simple as that. Yeah, that's starting to look right. All right, so now as you can see, it's just a long process of wrenching this in. So I will be with you in just a second once I get it in all the way. All right, easy enough. So as you can see, it is in, well, you probably can't see from there because the mark is over here, but I am at my mark. So I've got 4 inches of rod in the wall, and then 8 inches sticking out. So now I'll take these nuts off and we'll get this squared up. A lot easier to get them back off now that I'm not trying to film and hold the rod and get them at the same time. So literally just that easy. come right off. And now we'll check it with our speed square. And we can see. Okay, so it's hard to see from your guys' angle, but I've got a little bit of play in it. So I've got to bend it that way and also up because I've got some play this way. So just gonna manhandle it into place a little bit. And I'll try that. That is looking much better. It's not perfect, but it's never going to be. So up and down looks great. Now I've got to go this way some still. Just give it a little bend. A little more. Let's do this the right way. And now a little more, which is good. If they don't bend easily, that means it's going to be a stronger shelf. So I like that. All right, that is looking beautiful. I'm trying to wiggle it here, and as you can see, there's no play. And it is looking quite good up and down as well. So that's 2 done, and now I've got many more to go. So I'll go ahead and finish all of these rods and then show you guys when it's done, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, so as you can see, I've finally got all of the rods in the wall. That took quite a while, but I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. It ought to be pretty strong. And they're all as straight as I can possibly get them right now. So the next step will be to make holes for these rods in the boards. So to do that, I've got this right here, this great big Long Daddy 12-inch, half-inch drill bit. So I will be using that to drill into the wood. Also, the only thing of note that went wrong here was this very end rod right here. You can see where I didn't quite make it all the way in. That is because I hit a screw. There is drywall on the other side of this wall, and so there just happened to be a screw right where I put this rod, unfortunately. So I made it all the way to that screw and had to leave the rod out about a half-inch or so. But that being said, I can just accommodate for that in the hole with the shelf itself. So now we will go drill the shelf holes. I've got this marked right here with the depth that I need to go with this bit. The farther mark right there is for the deeper rod that I just talked about with the screw, and then the other mark is how deep I need to go for all of the regular ones. So all I have to do was drill to that point on the bit, and that'll be it. So let's go ahead and get to drilling on those shelves. So as you can see, this one shelf has been cut to length. I'll have to cut the other ones, but before I do that, I figured I would show you how I'm going to mark to drill these holes for these rods. So all I'm going to do for that, simple enough, make sure it's tight to the wall on this side, and then lay it up on the end. And now I can see exactly where center is on each of these. So I'll just mark center. And then on this end, I'll mark center width-wise, and then I'll have my exact hole as to where I need to drill into the board. And then I will drill just enough that these will clear, but then also have a little bit of room for debris and also for the epoxy that I'm going to put in. So I will mark all these out, drill them out, and then we'll test fit this before I paint or sand or anything to make sure this fits, and then we'll keep on going. Alright, so as you can see, I have the board cut and drilled and ready to try to get it on here. So let's see how well this goes here. Might be kind of a trick to get all of the holes lined up perfectly. Oh, okay, there we go. That side is ready. There we go. All right. Okay, we are a little bit stuck, but all of the holes do seem to work. Okay, cool. So I'm wondering if I even need to do the epoxy, because as tight as this is, there's no way it's ever coming off. Ain't no way. Let's see, so I think actually, instead of pounding this on anymore, I think I'm gonna go ahead and Bondo and sand and paint all of the shelves. Obviously cut the other ones to length, drill them, Bondo, sand, paint, and then come and try to fit them on without the epoxy, because, I mean, I could, theoretically, I could coat the threads with epoxy, and then whatever little bit it could do, it'll do. But yeah, it's looking like it's gonna be friction fit, and that's gonna be enough, because that is freaking tight. That's not going anywhere. Okay. All right, well, in that case, I will start cutting and drilling and sanding and bondoing and painting. So all right, guys, as you can see, I finally have the painting done. Here's one of the shelves next to the off-fall from it, so you can kind of see the difference. I have the other ones over here all painted up and ready to mount. So that'll be what we do next. But you can see here, it started off as a pretty rough piece of wood, lots of knots and everything. And it's not perfect by any means, the way they came out. But I think, given the circumstances, it's pretty darn good, and I am quite happy with them. There's a few spots I'm going to touch up when I'm done getting them mounted and everything, but it is not much, so I am very happy with how they turned out. So now, the next step will be mounting them, and I am not 100% sure how I want to do it. I have two ideas. One, simpler idea is just to friction fit. So like this shorter shelf, I think I'm going to do it first and see how that goes, because then I can see these shelves that have twice as many rods. If the one with 3 rods fits just fine by friction, obviously these other ones will as well. But if that doesn't work, if it's too loose, if I can pull them off, I have this JB Weld Clear Weld, got some epoxy here that I will put in the holes in the shelves to epoxy them into place if the friction doesn't work. I think it's going to be tight enough without, so I think I'm going to hold off on opening it for right now, but I might have to. One other thing that I thought of, I guess I should say, if you end up doing this type of shelf yourself, be careful and make sure there's no wiring in the wall. Since I built this wall myself, I kind of know that there's nothing that I could have ran into here other than the screw that I ran into in that lower corner. But your mileage may vary. I'm not responsible for any damage. Just wanted to throw that in there. Be careful in case you get into something inside the wall. That would not be good. But with that being said, oh, also I obviously I didn't film the sanding and painting process because it was many hours of very unglamorous work. But I sanded down the board with 80 grit sandpaper, got everything as smooth as I could, vacuumed it off, shop vacuumed it to make sure everything was clean, and then bondoed all of these knots. So you can see all the really deep, nasty, gnarly knots and divots, and even this kind of imperfection right here. Anything like that, I bondoed to make this as smooth as possible, then put on 1 coat of primer, and then 1 coat of paint, and then sand and paint and sand and paint until I had 4 coats of paint on top of the primer, and then finally got the coverage that I needed. It ended up taking quite a while, so it's been a few days since I filmed the first time. But now that we've got all of that out of the way, I'm excited to see how the mounting process goes. I think we're going to go ahead and start with the top shelf, like I said. So let me set up a tripod so you guys can get a good view, and let's get to mounting it. All right, I think I have a good shot here, so let's go ahead and try to mount this thing. I am curious to see how well it works with no epoxy. So let me actually make sure first that I do it the right way. Because the holes are not perfectly lined up both directions, and this is the right way. This section here is a little bit different than the size of this section, so I need to make sure it's the right way, which it is. So, all right, moment of truth. Let's see how this goes. Gotta get the holes lined up with the rods, and then it should just slide on. Oh yeah, that's gonna be tight. Oh boy. Gotta kind of shimmy it on just a little bit at a time. And there's not going to be any pulling that off. Not by accident, anyway. So, mounting with the 6 holes is going to be interesting for sure. But, look at that. That is going to be nice. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to bother with the epoxy, which means I can take that back and get my money back, which is going to be nice. There it is. Alright, so that is one mounted. Pretty freaking solid. I like that a lot. Okay, cool. Okay, so as you can probably see, I can't see from down here, but as you can probably see on the camera, this gap behind, I'm assuming is not perfect all the way through. So once we get these mounted, yeah, that's not going anywhere. That's not going anywhere. Okay, so once we get these mounted, I will run a bead of caulk all the way around the shelf, all the way around these other shelves, and give it a nice finish. So, what do you guys think so far? Let me know. I'm sure there will be a lot of people that let me know things they would do differently, and that's okay. I am curious of your guys' thoughts. So, let's go ahead and readjust the camera again and try one of these long shelves next. I am curious to see how it goes. Should go smoothly, but nothing ever goes perfect, so let's see how it works out. Alright, so now comes the interesting part of trying to get this to line up perfectly. I've got twice as many rods to get in the holes, so we gotta get them started, and then that won't be the only tricky part, but let me do this before I talk too much about the other stuff. Let's see here. Oh yeah, there we go. Sweet, okay. We are started all the way across. Now I've got to make sure we don't get too out of kilter, because this is going to fit tight to the wall. So if we kick one end in too far, it's going to make it harder to push in, as well as it might damage the wall too. So you need to kind of, as evenly as possible, shimmy this thing into place. Okay, so like right now, you can't see very well, but this corner here is much tighter than this corner over here. So that means you need to push this end in to unstick it. And now it should be a little more even. Yeah, now I've got an even gap all the way across. So now I need to push as evenly as possible into the wall. Holy cow. Okay, that's going to be a tight fit. I like it. Very nice. Yeah, definitely don't need epoxy for this. Probably should get a hammer, or like a mallet, or a hammer with, you could do either a rubber mallet or like a hammer with a board to take the brunt of it, and like a towel behind it to tap it into place. That would be the smart way to do it, but I don't feel like going to get things, so I'm just going to beat it into place like a goober, but it's going to work out, so. Definitely going to be plenty tight. That is really starting to hurt my hand. So I might, I haven't got much left, but it's beating the crap out of my hand. Okay, I am actually going to go get those tools that I talked about anyway and do things the smart way, so I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to start by using just a rubber mallet before I get any bigger tools, just to see how it works and to show you guys how it works. But since this thing is a little dirty, I am going to use a paper towel in between. That way when I'm tapping on it, I'm not leaving little circle dirty spots on the front of the shelf. So, let's see how well this taps in. Not bad. that is quite the tight fit. So better make sure, once you get to this point, make sure everything is right so you don't have to pull it back off. Alright, we're pretty tight to the wall, not perfect. Okay, alright, so I don't think we're going to get much tighter than that. There's a little gap here, and you can see, I'm sure in the video, even better than I can from here. Tight here in this corner, bigger gap all the way over to that corner, and then tight there. Very much normal. No drywall is going to be ever perfectly flat. The guys that mudded and taped this drywall did a great job, and it looks fantastic, but it's never going to be perfect. So I'm definitely going to have to caulk all the way around this. But with that, we have, holy crap, that is even more solid than I expected. But with that, we have 2 more shelves mounted. So heck yeah. And my hand is killing me. So don't be dumb like me and beat things with your hand if you can help it. Get a rubber mallet. Okay, all right, we got 2 more to mount, so let's go ahead and do that next. All right, guys, as you can see, pretty freaking strong. I thought these would be pretty strong, but they're even stronger than I expected, and there's no way they're pulling off, even without epoxy. So, I will show you guys a few details before I start caulking, and then we'll do that. So let me show you guys a few things real quick. Okay, so I am going to have a little bit of touch-up work to do. There's a few spots like this right here. Another one on this top shelf up here. Can't really see it from down here, but little odds and ends touch up along with caulking these gaps to make sure it's got a nice clean look to it. And then also, I was talking about damaging the wall, and I did a little bit. It's not bad, but I'm going to have to do a little touch-up paint on this wall as well. Thankfully, I still have some paint left over from when I painted the first time. And then there's also some little dings and stuff in this wall that I'm going to have to clean up, do a little touch-up work on. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and do some caulking. So I'll go ahead and get the caulk. Actually, you know what? Let's back up and take a good look so far. What do you guys think? I think that is pretty darn good looking. So let's go ahead and get the tube of caulk, and we'll make it look even better. All right, so as you can see, I'm just using some generic white caulk here. Nothing too special, just enough to close up that gap. So I am no professional at caulking, but we'll see how this goes. So we'll just go ahead and get started. I'm going to try to get a good clean bead going as smoothly as possible without getting too high up on the wall, while also making sure that the joint is full. Not the best start, so let's go ahead and keep doing this. We got to do this across this shelf as well as the bottom of this one and around all 3 other ones. So we'll go ahead and just keep on caulking. Okay, so now that we've got the caulk actually on the joint, I'm going to go ahead and smooth it. And the way I do this, I'm sure there's people who will do it differently, but I just get a cup of water, dip my finger in to make sure it's kind of moist, and then just smooth it off. As you can see, there's going to be extra. So I'm just wiping it into a paper towel. I'm sure there will be people who do this a lot better than I do that can tell me better ways, but this works pretty good for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that all the way around this shelf. All right, so as you can see, I have the bead all the way through, at least on this top. I've still got to go all the way around the shelf, but I've got it smoothed out to the point where there are no big clumps, anything like that, so I'll be able to do some touch-up paint once it sets up. According to YouTube, it takes 40 minutes to set up and then be paintable, so I've got this to touch-up paint, that wall over there like I talked about, a few spots along the wall, a few spots on the shelf, so there's a lot of touch-up to do. So I'm going to go ahead and finish caulking and then do the touch-up, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like once that's all done, and then the shelves should be done. So I am very much looking forward to how it turns out. All right, guys, the touch-up is finally done. That was probably one of the roughest caulk jobs I've ever done. Kind of embarrassing, honestly, a little bit rougher than I normally like, but the touch-up paint, I think, turned out pretty darn good. Not perfect, as you can see, but I am quite happy with how it's all turned out. So, all right, well, with that, the shelves are done. It is currently, I think, 2 days after the last recording, and it has been about 8 days for this project, working as much as I can in my free time to get it done. So now, the only thing left to do is to stock these shelves with the stuff on those shelves over there, and get this whole mess cleaned up and get the game room back together. So let's go ahead and start putting things on the shelf. That's exciting. So what do you guys think? Is it as much of an improvement to you as it is to me? I hope so, and I also hope you guys enjoyed this video and maybe learned some things along the way. Let me know in the comments your thoughts. I'm sure there will be lots of people criticizing my work as well as hopefully people enjoying. But let me know either way what you think in the comments, and go ahead and hit the like button if you found value in this video. Also, I have a full tour of the game room before this change if you guys want to watch that, as well as other gaming content on the channel. I'm hoping to do more collecting style videos along the lines of collecting rather than just gameplay, but we will see what the future holds. So thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a ton of fun, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.